Imagine waking up one day and hearing on the news, quantum computers just cracked Bitcoin security. Your wallet is wide open and billions of dollars in crypto are at risk. This kind of sounds like a sci-fi movie, right? Well, this isn't science fiction, it's a real possibility that people are starting to talk about. I'm Brett at CryptoGX, and in this video, we're going to explore the mysterious world of quantum computers and what they mean for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I'm going to keep it really simple and beginner friendly, and I'll even give you a peek into what's been done to protect crypto from this quantum threat. Stick around to the end because the answer isn't as scary or as simple as you might think. So first, let's talk about what is a quantum computer. To do that, we're going to have to compare to normal computers. A normal computer uses things called bits. A bit is either a 1 or a 0, which means on or off. You've probably seen code that's just a bunch of ones and zeros. That's exactly what that means, on or off. Now, quantum computers are a little bit different in the fact that they use qubits. A qubit can be either 1, 0, or both at the same time thanks to something called superposition. Now think about bits as light switches, up or down, on or off. Qubits are kind of the magical dimmer that switches can be in many positions all at once. Here's a bit of a graphic that can explain this. For classical computing here, it calculates with transistors which can represent either 1 or 0, and these are the two options, closed or open. And then over here with qubits in quantum computing, you can see that instead of these kind of lines that are connected, it's more of a sphere, and it basically compounds the ability of these bits into qubits, giving it almost like an alternate dimension in which they can operate. Now take a look at this chart as well. This shows how many qubits different companies currently have and how many we'd really need to change crypto security. Now I know this is a little bit confusing looking, but as you can see from the "we are here" option, this line is the number of qubits that we can achieve currently. These are the companies that are working on that. Now this line is the level needed to actually break all of the security within crypto. So it is quite far away. A rough estimation of from where we are, based on the fact that you need to move in two directions here, you would have to probably quadruple at least the output of where we're at right now, and that will take some time. So now, keeping that in mind, let's go back to Bitcoin's security. Bitcoin is protected by something called cryptography. This is math that locks things up. They're, codes that create these keys. Now, a private key is something that most people know about in crypto. It's a very, very important thing for you to know as a user of crypto. This is your secret password that proves that the account is yours and lets you log into it. It cannot be retrieved when, forget it or, any sort of like forgot password thing on a website. That is not possible. You have to remember this. You have to write it down. You got to put it in a lockbox. You got to keep it safe. And if anybody gets access to it, they can access your crypto. Now, they also have something on the blockchain called public keys. This is the code that you share so people can send you Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency that you particularly want. This is the address of your crypto wallet, and you can share this with anybody. It's fine. They just can see what's in your wallet. They can't get access to it because of having this public key. Now, it's very easy to go from your private key to getting your public key, but it's almost impossible to take your public key and then find out what your private key is. The private key being the one that logs you into your wallet, essentially. Now, since we talked about cryptography, there is a timeline for entities to convert from traditional cryptography to quantum cryptography. Now, as you can see here on this timeline, it's going to take many years. They have this going with some milestones in 2028, 2031, and 2035, and you basically have to migrate all of your systems to a new quantum capable system. For a few years, you'd have to figure out what the goals are when you migrate. You'd have to discover all sorts of infrastructure and service needs depending on, your system, or basically the platform itself, meaning Bitcoin would have to then upgrade, and we'd have to figure out what within Bitcoin needs to upgrade, and then there would have to be a consensus between all of the users of Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually does this here and there with certain updates to make transactions faster and things like that, but then basically you start your plan, you'd refine it as you go along, and then you would complete it, and they're basically saying that it would take about 10 years for this to happen. Now, what we're curious about is that timeline fast enough? To answer this question, first we gotta figure out how quantum computing is threatening Bitcoin currently at the moment. So these threats are really where quantum computing gets scary. There is an algorithm called Shor's algorithm. If a quantum computer is powerful enough, it could use this to calculate someone's private key from their public key in hours rather than thousands of years. This could mean that wallets are instantly drained and trust is broken, and then they're sold, and then over time, probably not very long, all of these assets would just actually go to zero. Now, going back to this chart that I showed you before, this is the number of qubits needed to actually break that code, the RSA right here, this is what is needed. So there is an error rate here and a number of qubits. This line is essentially the error corrected number of qubits that is needed to break this code. Now, based on the actual math of this, I know I mentioned that just based on the look of this graph, it looks like you would have to multiply by 1, 2, 3, 4 to get there. But in reality, if we're looking at the numbers, 10 to the 6 is about 1,000,000 qubits, and then 10 to the, let's say, 2.5 is about 316 qubits. So there is a long, long way to go. Now, if we did the math on that, 1,000,000 divided by 316, we would actually have to multiply about 3,000 times from the current capabilities of these quantum computers. To give you a little bit more peace of mind, this educational paper from many very, very highly touted experts, about half of them say it's extremely unlikely that this happens within the next 5 years where, quantum computing can break Bitcoin. About half of these experts said that there's a 5% chance that it happens in the next 10 years. Some would say 50% or higher, but a large percentage of them were saying that it was about a 5% chance. And then in 15 years, the majority said that there's at least a 50% chance of this happening. And then in 20 years, 60% chance rated it as greater than a 70% chance of happening. So most of these people are saying essentially that the timeline of this is probably going to be 10 years or greater from now, and the timeline to fix these issues is about 10 years. So all of these opinions are skewed, they are different, but really what we're looking for is how close are we to this happening? When it comes down to the technology we actually have, we're not that close yet. Today's biggest quantum computers have hundreds of qubits, but they're noisy, meaning they can make mistakes and they can't hold quantum states very long. Bitcoin would need to be attacked with millions of stable qubits. Now here's a couple quantum computers so you can kind of get the gist of what they look like. They're very complicated and they're very difficult to keep cool and to maintain. So at the moment, Bitcoin is safe. Now I talked about the timeline of what it could look like to be keeping us safe in crypto from these quantum computers, but let's talk about what's actually being done. Crypto developers are not waiting until this becomes a problem. There is a whole field called post-quantum cryptography. This just means new locks that even quantum computers can't pick. Now one example is lattice-based cryptography, like tossing puzzle pieces into a giant 3D maze. There's also hash-based signatures. This is like creating a new fingerprint every time you unlock your wallet. Now, if you're not familiar with Palo Alto Networks, this is a huge, huge company in the tech space. This is a page where they basically help companies plan when to migrate away from old encryption to new quantum resistant ones. So as you can see, this is something that is very prevalent in the tech world and is already in motion. This should give you confidence in the fact that by the time quantum computers are a real threat, Bitcoin could likely already be upgraded. So let's boil this all down to its simplest point. Quantum computers are machines that can do certain types of math way faster than normal computers, obviously. One day, they could threaten Bitcoin's cryptography at Bitcoin's current state, but they're not there yet. We're decades away, most likely. Now, developers and governments are already building quantum-proof upgrades. For beginners, the real danger today is still just human mistakes and scams. Now, my personal take is quantum computing might actually strengthen crypto in the long run because it's going to force the whole system to get more secure. This really just means that more upgrades are going into crypto, and that's going to build more confidence, more value, and crypto is going to be more and more valuable over time. I see this as a really strong point for crypto, especially as a strong point for getting into crypto now, just because all of these upgrades and, kind of upward momentum is going to bring the value of it up much, much higher, and getting in early is always the best thing to do, especially buying and holding for a very, very long time, as we've seen with Bitcoin over the past decade or more. Now, if you want to get some crypto of your own, I put links in the description for Coinbase and Crypto.com, where you'll get at least $50 in crypto just for signing up with those links. And if you want to get into meme coins, I also left a link to MoonShot, where you can claim some free meme coins when you sign up. If you learned something new or just enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to stay tuned for all things crypto. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.